We always joked about it. Don't be the last one to fall asleep, but the night I was the last one. They didn't laugh. They didn't look at me. They just closed their eyes, and something else in the room opened its own. There was something unsettling about sleepovers that no one talks about. The moment between the last laugh and the first snore. When the lights are off, the room falls quiet and everyone's breathing slows, but yours. When you're the only one awake and the darkness feels just a little too crowded. I used to think it was in my head, that weird anxiety you get when you can't fall asleep and everyone else can. But now I know better. Because at our sleepovers there was a rule, a joke, a tradition: never be the last one to fall asleep. We started saying it when we were 7. Me, Lucas, Brian and Terrell. Our parents would take turns hosting movie nights and we'll spread out our sleeping bags in someone's basement or living room. Every time, right before lights out, someone would whisper, "Don't be the last one to fall asleep." At first, we just laughed. It was part of a ritual, just a dumb line someone heard from their older cousin. But eventually, we stopped laughing because something started to happen. By the time we were 11, the tradition had stuck. We'd built it into the night. Games, snacks, pillow fights, horror movies, and then, as always, the warning: don't be the last. We never really questioned it. It was like an unspoken rule, one of those weird childhood superstitions that just felt true. And each time, one of us would fake a snore first, and the rest would follow. It was never a contest, it was more like a test. Then came the night at Lucas's house. His parents had just converted the basement into a hangout space. Giant TV, beanbags, wall-to-wall carpeting. It was perfect for a sleepover. We were 13 by then, the age when you're too old to be scared of the dark but too young to understand why it scares you. We watched The Thing and tried to gross each other out with popcorn burps. Around midnight, Lucas said the line again, this time with a nervous chuckle. Remember guys, don't be last." Terrell laughed. "Man, we still doing that?" Brian just nodded. "Better be safe than sorry." I didn't say anything. I was tired. I'd had football practice that afternoon and felt like I could sleep through a hurricane. But for some reason, I stayed awake longer than usual. One by one, the others dropped off. I heard Terrell's breathing slow, Brian's light snore, Lucas shifting under his blanket, then stillness. I stared up at the ceiling, waiting to sleep. Then I heard it. A soft sound, like something moving just outside the circle of the sleeping bags. I sat up slowly. The TV's reflection glowed faintly on the wall. Nothing moved. The air was still. But then I noticed something else. Their faces. They weren't asleep. They were pretending. Eyes squeezed shut, bodies unnaturally stiff, as if waiting. I whispered, "Lucas." No response. I crawled over and shook his shoulder. Nothing. Then, from the shadows near the corner of the room, I heard something laugh. Not loudly, a soft, crackling sound, like someone who hadn't used their voice in years. I turned fast. There was no one there, just the basement door, slightly ajar. The next morning, no one mentioned it. Not the sounds, not the stiff, fake sleeping, not the voice. And when I brought it up, they looked confused. Lucas even laughed and said, "Bro, you passed out right after the movie." I didn't argue, but I knew I was the last one, and I knew something had been in the room. A few months later, we had another sleepover, this time at Brian's house, and I made sure, really sure, I wasn't the last. I even drank warm milk and forced my eyes shut as soon as the lights went off. And as I drifted, I heard it again, and I heard Brian whisper back, "Not me, not tonight." I didn't say anything after that. The game had rules, unspoken but clear. The last one to fall asleep, wasn't just left behind, they were offered. Years passed, we grew up, went to different high schools, the sleepovers stopped, but the tradition never left my mind. It lingered, like a warning burned into the back of my skull. Then, last year, Lucas messaged us, said we should all meet up again, one last sleepover, just like old times. We were 19, college kids, half drunk on nostalgia and the chance to feel like kids again. We said yes. We met at Lucas's house. His parents were gone for the weekend, and the basement looked the same, but colder, like something had settled in the walls and made itself at home. We joked, played old video games, ate garbage. At midnight, Brian stood up and turned off the lights, and he whispered it again. "Don't be the last." Nobody laughed. We laid down in silence, one by one. I listened to their breathing fade. I fought sleep. I couldn't be the last, not this time. But my body betrayed me. I drifted. And when I opened my eyes, it was pitch black. The kind of black that doesn't feel empty, it feels alive. The room was silent. Then I realized something terrifying. I wasn't in my sleeping bag anymore. I was standing in the middle of the room, frozen like a puppet on invisible strings. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. My lips didn't even move. I looked down. My body didn't feel like mine. It was like I was a passenger trapped behind my own eyes. And then I turned. I didn't mean to. My body just moved. And standing in the corner of the room was something else. Tall, featureless, its skin looked like candle wax left out in the sun, melting and warping, rippling with motion even though it stood still. It didn't have a face, but I could feel it looking at me. And then, in a voice made of every friend I'd ever had, it spoke. "Your turn." I woke up in the morning, flat on the floor, heart pounding. The others were still asleep, or so I thought. When Lucas stirred, he looked at me and nodded, slow and sad. Brian wouldn't even meet my eyes. Pharrell whispered, "I'm sorry." I didn't understand until we left. We all went our separate ways, promised to keep in touch, but they stopped responding to texts. Lucas blocked me, Brian deleted his account, and Terrell moved away. They'd passed something on to me, and I knew it. The next night, I felt it watching me in the mirror. That thing from the corner, the one that chose me, it whispered, "Soon." I didn't sleep that night, but eventually I did. And I dreamed of faces I didn't recognize, kids, dozens of them, all standing in a circle, eyes wide, terrified, all chanting, "Don't be the last one to fall asleep." And last week, a friend from college asked if I wanted to host a movie night. He doesn't know, not yet, but he will, because the rules are still the same. And now, it's my turn to choose. I was halfway into my sleeping bag when I saw it, the Crawlspace door slowly creaking open, just a few feet from my face. What slithered out looked exactly like Maddie, except it was too thin, too fast, and its head twitched. When I screamed, Maddie didn't react. She just stood there, smiling, like she already knew what I'd seen. It's been over 10 years since I had that sleepover, but I still can't sleep with my back to the wall, not after what happened in Maddie's room. Back then, Maddie was my best friend at school. Quiet, pale, always a little distant, but funny in her own dry way. We clicked instantly, bonding over horror movies, drawing creepy comics, and making up stories about monsters in the woods behind the school. She was the only person who didn't make me feel like I had to try to be cool. But Maddie never invited people to her house, ever. Every time I asked, she said, "Maybe one day." Then, one Friday in early November, she changed her mind. "My parents are going out of town. she said casually. "Wanna sleep over?" I was so surprised, I almost dropped my lunch tray. I said yes, without hesitation. My mum was hesitant, said she got a weird vibe from Maddie, but I begged her to let me go. We were 14, it was just a sleepover, nothing was supposed to happen. Maddie's house was older than I expected, a squat, 2-story place at the edge of town with warped wooden siding and a yard full of brittle leaves that crunched underfoot. Inside, it smelled faintly of mildew and something metallic, not blood exactly, but something close. Her parents were already gone when I arrived. Her room was upstairs, across a narrow hallway. It was bigger than mine, decorated with fairy lights and band posters, but it felt off. Not messy, not haunted, just still, like the air had been holding its breath. My eyes were immediately drawn to a small wooden door on the far wall, set low, about a foot above the floor. "What's that?" I asked. Maddie barely looked up from her phone. "The Crawlspace, it's sealed. My dad keeps tools in there." I nodded, but the sight of it made my skin crawl. It was old, splintered, with a tarnished brass latch and a thin padlock. Something about it reminded me of a mouth forced shut. That night, we stayed up late watching The Ring and eating too many Skittles. By midnight, we were curled up in our sleeping bags, talking in whispers. I was mid-sentence when I heard it. Scrape. A slow dragging sound from the far wall. I stopped talking. Maddie didn't react. "Did you hear that?" I asked. "Hear what?" she said. "Scrape, scrape, and then a thump." I sat up. The sound was unmistakable. It was coming from inside the Crawlspace. Maddie didn't even look over. "It's just the pipes," she mumbled. "They do that when the temperature drops." But the sound didn't fade like old pipes. It paced, like something was moving, testing the walls. I didn't sleep much. Every time I shut my eyes, I heard another subtle thump, a whisper of movement. At one point, I swear, I heard something breathing. The next morning, Maddie acted like nothing had happened. She made microwave pancakes and joked about the movie like she hadn't heard the thing crawling around beneath us. I told myself I'd imagined it, that I was being dramatic, but something inside me knew better. The second night, Maddie asked if I wanted to sleep over again. I hesitated, but I didn't want to seem scared. Besides, we were friends, and friends didn't ditch each other over weird noises. This time, around midnight, she went to the bathroom to wash her face. I stayed in the sleeping bag, scrolling through TikTok. That's when I heard the click. It wasn't loud, just a soft, metallic click, like a latch being undone. Then came the creak. I turned slowly. The Crawlspace door was open. At first, I thought Maddie was just messing around, but then something moved. It slithered out on all fours, pale skin, dark hoodie, black hair falling into its face. It looked like Maddie, at least at a glance, but it was wrong. Its limbs were too long, its elbows bent the wrong way, and its head jerked to the side like a dog trying to understand the noise. I couldn't breathe. The thing crawled out further, sniffing the air. It smiled at me, wide and crooked, and then scuttled backwards into the Crawlspace, slamming the door shut behind it with a loud thud. When Maddie walked back into the room, I screamed. "Why did you do that?" She blinked at me, confused. "Do what?" "That thing, that wasn't funny. What the hell is going on?" She looked at the Crawlspace, then at me, and her face changed. It wasn't surprise or fear, it was guilt. She sat down on the floor across from me. "I didn't think she'll come out this time," she said softly. "She? What do you mean, she?" Maddie stared at the floor. She's been here since I was little. I don't know what she is. I used to think she was a ghost, but ghosts don't crawl like that. They don't watch you like that. I was trembling. You knew something lived in your crawl space and you still invited me over? I thought it would be okay. Her voice cracked. I hadn't had a friend in years, not a real one, but I think she gets jealous. My heart was pounding. She only comes out when someone new is here, Maddie continued. She mimics me, follows people, watches how they act around me. I don't think she likes when someone gets close. I'm leaving, I said, grabbing my bag. Maddie didn't stop me, but just as I reached the hallway, I heard it again. Click, creak, and then a guttural hiss that rattled the air around me. I turned, and I saw it. Not Maddie, not exactly. It was her face, but too smooth, like it had been stretched over something else. The thing was halfway out the crawl space, twisted and twitching, eyes too wide, mouth split in a grin that didn't move. Stay, it whispered, in Maddie's voice, but warped, like a broken recording. I ran. I bolted out the room, down the stairs, and into the night without shoes. The wind howled around me as I sprinted down the gravel driveway, not daring to look back. When my mum picked me up, I was hysterical. I told her everything. To my shock, she didn't question me. She just said, I always knew something was wrong in that house. She never let me go back to that neighbourhood again. And 2 weeks later, Maddie's family moved away. No forwarding address, and her number was disconnected. It was like she never existed. Years have passed, but sometimes I still hear that scraping. It doesn't come from the walls anymore. It comes from my dreams. I'll wake up in a cold sweat, convinced something is watching me from the corner of the room. And every time I do, I swear I hear her voice. That warped, glitched out version of Maddie whispering, stay. We thought it was just a dumb TikTok trend. Say your friend's name 3 times in the mirror after midnight and you'll see their true self. We did it for laughs, but when Kayla didn't wake up, we realised something had come out of the mirror and it was still wearing her face. I'm never looking into another mirror again. I keep them all covered. My bathroom, my bedroom, even the screen of my phone when it's off. Because once you've seen what pretends to be you behind the glass, once you've watched your best friend's reflection blink when she didn't, you don't forget. Can't forget. It started during a sleepover with 3 of my closest friends, Kayla, Chloe and Maya. We were all 15 and like most teen girls, we lived on TikTok. Scrolling, laughing, sending each other cursed videos at 2 AM. That weekend, Kayla found something called the Mirror Sleepover Challenge. The rules were simple and creepy. After midnight, in a dark room, stand in front of a mirror and chant your friend's full name 3 times. Supposedly, you'd see who they really were, their hidden self, their future, sometimes their soul. Of course, it was all fake, some urban legend with a filter, but we planned to do it for laughs, film ourselves freaking out, maybe try to go viral. None of us believed it, not until Kayla didn't wake up the next morning. We were at Chloe's house, her parents were out of town, and she had a giant bedroom with its own bathroom and a massive floor-length mirror, perfect for creepy games. The night started out normal, snacks, scary movies, stupid pranks. Around 11:30 PM, Kayla brought up the challenge again. Come on, she said, let's just try it, it'll be hilarious. Maya rolled her eyes. You know it's fake, right? Literally, just people making reaction content. That's the point, Chloe grinned. We'll do it, freak ourselves out and post it with a dramatic caption. We waited until 12:03 AM. The house was dead quiet. Outside, the wind scraped against the siding like fingers. We turned off all the lights and lit a candle in front of the mirror. Shadows danced across the walls. One by one, we went. First, Maya said Chloe's name 3 times. Chloe stuck her tongue out in the mirror and made a face. We laughed. Nothing happened. Then Chloe went. Then me. Same thing. All jokes. Then it was Kayla's turn. She stood in front of the mirror, her face lit orange by the candle. She looked nervous. I nudged her. Are you good? She hesitated, then nodded. She looked into the glass and whispered, Emily Jordan Carter, Emily Jordan Carter, Emily Jordan Carter. My full name. We all waited. Nothing happened. We were about to laugh when the candle flickered violently. I felt the room grow colder, not a little colder, freezing. My breath came out in clouds, and then Kayla's reflection turned its head towards me. Not her real head, just the reflection. I screamed. Maya dropped her phone and Chloe hit the light switch. When the room lit up, everything was normal. Kayla was still standing there, pale and shaking. Did you see that? I gasped. Chloe shrugged. See what? But Kayla's hands were trembling. Something moved, she said, behind me, in the mirror. I thought it was you, but you didn't move. None of us laughed this time. We decided that was enough for one night, and we slept with the lights on. The next morning, Kayla didn't come downstairs. We figured she was just sleeping in, until Maya went to wake her up and screamed. We rushed in. Kayla was lying on the bed, eyes wide open, but unblinking. Her skin was pale and clammy, her body stiff, her mouth slightly open like she was mid-breath. She wouldn't move, wouldn't speak, wouldn't blink. We called 911. The paramedics called it an episode. They thought she was catatonic. Her eyes still responded to light, but she was totally unresponsive. She was taken to hospital. That should have been the end of it, but then she came back. It happened 3 days later. Kayla was suddenly discharged. The doctors were confused but relieved. She just woken up. No damage, no memory of what happened. Only one problem. That wasn't Kayla. At first, she looked the same. Same face, same voice, but something was off. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. She moved like she was watching other people and copying them. And when I caught her alone, she didn't recognize me. She pretended to, said all the right things, but her eyes were blank. Dead. That weekend, we had a group FaceTime. Kayla joined late. The camera was on, but the lighting was weird, too dark, like she was sitting in a room lit only by the TV. I joked, dude, you look like you're in a horror movie. She smiled slowly. Maybe I am. Then her screen glitched, just for a second, and in that second, I swear I saw 2 faces. One behind her, one screaming. I ended the call. The next day, I went back to Chloe's house. I needed to see the mirror, to understand what we'd done. Chloe was hesitant, but she let me in. The room was exactly the same, except for the mirror. It was covered in smudges, handprints, too many to be ours. I uncovered it slowly. Nothing happened, but then I looked at my reflection and froze. There were 4 of us in the room. Me, Chloe, Maya, and Kayla. But in the mirror, there were 5. Behind us, barely visible in the shadows, was a pale face, and it was screaming. I turned to look. Nothing was there, but in the reflection, it was still there, watching. That night, I woke up in the middle of a sleep paralysis episode. I couldn't move, I couldn't speak. I was frozen in bed, staring straight at the mirror across from me. Except, I don't have a mirror in my room. There it was, anyway, same floor-length mirror from Chloe's, just standing there. I watched in terror as something began to crawl out of it, slowly, painfully. A pale arm, a head, twitching and jerking, a face stretched tight over bone. It was Kayla, but wrong. The thing climbed halfway out and just stared at me. "Emily, Emily," it whispered. "I like your body better." Then it smiled and slid back inside. When I woke up the next morning, the mirror was gone, like it had never been there, but I found 3 long scratches across my bedsheet. We tried to ignore it, pretend things were okay, but Kayla kept getting weirder. She didn't remember inside jokes. She didn't cry when we showed her photos of us last summer. One day, she leaned in close to Maya and whispered, "You're the next one." We stopped talking to her after that. The last time I saw her was a week later. She came to school with a cracked phone and no backpack. Her clothes were mismatched, and she sat alone in the cafeteria, smiling at nothing. Then she stopped showing up. Her parents filed a missing person report, but we knew the truth. Kayla wasn't missing. She was trapped in the mirror. Last month, I finally worked up the courage to go back to Chloe's one last time. We planned to destroy the mirror, burn it, shatter it, anything. We carried it to the woods behind her house. The thing was heavy, too heavy, like something inside was holding on. Before we smashed it, I looked one last time, and there she was, Kayla, the real one. She was pressed against the inside of the glass, palms flat, eyes wide in terror. Her mouth was open in a scream we couldn't hear, but I could read her lips. "Don't let her stay." We smashed it. Glass flew in every direction. The candle we brought went out instantly. The air grew hot, then icy, then completely still. We waited. Nothing happened until that night. I woke up to find a new mirror leaning against my bedroom wall. I never brought one in, and it was already cracked. And behind the glass, I saw her. Not Kayla. The thing wearing her face. Still smiling, still waiting. And if I get too close, I swear I can hear Kayla's voice screaming to be let out.